Hmm. Hmm. What is this? I don't know, it's missing. The texture. Get it? Like and subscribe for more epic sauce jokes just like that. There is supposed to be a texture here. However, for one reason or another, the software does not have access to it and doesn't know what to put here. That's how we get this, the missing texture. So, let's explore the origin, cases, and uses of the missing texture so we may be able to restore, understand, and fix what goes on here. This is the art of missing textures. What is the missing texture? Missing texture, sometimes referred to as an error texture, is a magenta and black checkered texture appearing in place when an engine lacks information necessary to assign the correct texture in place. If I may explain in my words, it's a safety feature for digital development to let the person know something is missing. This is especially useful in development of games. The game engine would either not display the mesh, aka the surface of the object, or display the incorrect texture, sometimes because of a bug, memory leak or misclicks. Occasionally you can even forget to assign the correct texture, or not having Counter-Strike Source installed while playing Source games. Originating in Source Engine, a 3D game engine created by Valve in 2004, the pattern itself became synonymous with transparency and zero opacity. It eventually got a life of its own in the internet zeitgeist, being referred to by other game engines and even outside of games and becoming synonymous with digitally corrupted files and appearing in memes, even to the point of being a meta aspect used to symbolize code degrading it, just like in this video. In the 20th anniversary developer commentary for Half-Life 2, Valve senior software engineer Jay Staley says that early in development of the code for the engine, it would be difficult to spot missing textures or polygons as it displayed a black color. To combat this and notice any visual bugs, they implemented the now famous missing texture. That was, and I quote, visually unmistakable and generated automatically whenever a texture failed to load. Source Engine is the origin point of this now iconic and beloved texture. This texture can appear in games made in the Source Engine, like Half-Life, Team Fortress 2, Portal, Counter-Strike, and especially Garry's Mod. As we went over the major points regarding its background and use in the Source Engine, let's dive into other notifiers in place along the same lines. Along the missing texture, another iconic system in place to show missing data is the error text. The bright red error text is displayed when an object is missing its mesh. Think of a mesh as the skin or the actual model or an object. It gives it its shape, structure, then the coat of paint you can actually see the model using is the material or the texture. When the model is missing, we get the error text. The Minecraft missing texture or the Minecraft missing texture block. This one is most likely a reference to the Source Engine original checkered board one, having almost an identical appearance as the Source Engine one, being a 2x2 magenta black checkboard for each side of the block. The missing blocks are usually bigger than the regular blocks when held. The patterns appear on blocks or entities missing a texture. You could see this if you have a texture pack missing necessary textures. Although most errors have been patched, this block can still appear in games, though it cannot be naturally obtained. This is a mod pack I put on by Shady Inktail, replacing all the blocks with the texture. As you can see, what I'm holding onto is a regular sized block which is actually textured correctly, referencing a missing texture. At least I hope. If it was actually broken, I wouldn't know. I am currently in the default third person template. It is some nice blocks and interactables, but we are here to see the ground. In Unreal Engine development, which I am quite familiar with firsthand, we have this. Unreal's default material for scene objects called Material Instance Prototype Grid Gray. Checkered flat gray texture. Much less distinguishable than the magenta black we are used to, but that is because it serves a somewhat different purpose. While yes, this is supposed to make it easy to see which objects are missing their textures, this is assigned to an already placed objects in the default scene. We want to see what the engine assigns by default when everything else fails. However, resetting the material of these objects will give this material for them. But this is still not the default material of these objects. We have to go deeper. Resetting the material of static mesh will give them the world grid material. This is also the texture visible for a moment before the material loads in the preview scene, which would make it the default mesh material. Let's test this out. If you add a new object, it will have a basic material created for it automatically, but removing it gives it the world grid material. Seems plausible enough. However, let's go back and re-examine the objects in the engine. Locating the engine content basic shapes, the cube has the world grid material as the default one, but the sphere has a material called default material assigned to it, which is not its default material since that is actually the world grid material when you reset it to its default value. There is a difference between the default texture the software has assigned to the building blocks and the actual engine's default texture after resetting the material to its default values. However, that is still not the missing texture of the Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine has a true missing texture, referred to as the mold texture, which appeared to one player playing Fortnite. The mold texture is actually a stock photo of pearls, confirmed to be engine's default texture uploaded in 1995 during development by Tim Sweeney. It was the first texture uploaded by the creator of Unreal Engine and is the actual default texture the engine uses when it does not know what to display. The missing texture is not necessarily the first texture uploaded, since it can be changed during development to a more suitable alternative like in Source Engine. In this case, the first is the default texture of the engine. Similarly, how the source's default was the black until it was replaced by the magenta checkboard. Also a little bonus, something reminiscent of the source error text, when I found myself by total not doing a bit whoopsie daisy while making a game. This blueprint bad picture. Blueprint actors are the props and characters you make and emblazon the scene. If you mess up enough, you get this bad text. I can find virtually nothing about this online and stumbled upon this by pure accident years ago. It's pretty easy to do this, and most people do not notice it, just by making a non-functioning blueprint and putting it in the scene. I did ask one of my programmer buddies if this is more common to see as a programmer, since I'm more on the animation side of things, and after trying to explain for 7 minutes that I don't need help to fix it, and that I'm asking for research, the answer was, yeah it is. It can happen for a multitude of reasons actually, such as switching the variable to something else, like the name or its type, that gives error in the blueprint or BP if it's being used. Or if a designer changes the blueprint variable type, like I did, to get the effect. It's a relatively easy fix actually, you just have to replace it in the blueprint or fix it in the code. Blender. Blender is an open source 3D graphics software, which is a fancy way to say you can make funny objects and animate in there, and so much more. Fun fact, it also used to be a game engine. The Blender's light magenta. This usually happens if you have a missing path that is supposed to reference an image on your device. This can happen if you download Blender files or objects online, and the file path saved does not match the one on your PC. Easiest fix is locating the textures that came along with the downloads and adding a new file path. In the same way as the original missing picture, the deep and unusual color makes it easy to spot any bugs or errors. But this is not the only texture that you can see when an object is lacking its texture, which should be familiar to any donut maker enjoyers. The default salt material. What I would like to call the equivalent of the default texture in Blender, like the world grid material in Unreal. In Blender, objects have materials. Materials control the appearance of meshes, curves, volumes, and other objects. They define the substance that the object is made of, its color and texture, and how light interacts with it. This is the default color assigned to objects, light to mid-tone gray, appearing on objects having no material assigned in Blender. It's sort of an invisible material. Adding a material creates a new material for said object with this base color. You can see it on the default cube in Blender, or every object if you switch to the solid viewport shading. Its purpose is most likely to assist with modeling and overall visualizations, without the distraction of materials. But if the object has a material, it can still display a sort of a missing texture. The material output is where you input the links from nodes with material information for the material output to give to the object. If there is no connections, it takes on a black color. The way I understand it, since there is no value assigned to it, it's zeros by default. That's why the result would be pitch black, as the color black is represented by a hex code 000000, and in RGB it consists of 0% on red, green and blue. Furthermore, we see the same result by plugging a black color into the material output. That's about everything. We should have all the info necessary to fix this missing texture. We have to find where the source is located, or maybe reconnect the missing links. This is why you name files properly. Oh, would you look at that? And now, for those eagle-eyed viewers who are actually watching, oh yeah, your eyes they just died from your game and or a drawing tablet, and I can say that because I'm the same. Anyway, you can see that this is the Blender setup, but this is the source magenta checkboard texture, missing texture on it. While I explicitly shown and explained that the Blender missing texture is pure magenta if the file path is wrong. And if this was a material without the material connected, it would be pitch black. And if it was missing a material, it would be light gray. Oh, here it is. The nodes are mismatched with the edge one. Similar to the modpack, it's actually displaying the texture of a missing texture. Alright, enough chitter chatter. Let's connect this. Viewer, quickly! You have to run away. I'm turning into an RNG. You laugh, but this would kill in 2016, which was a decade ago. I mean, I feel the same way. My code or mesh is not affected, so let's just bloop. Oh, that's where I put it. Wait, does that mean the original one is definitely nasty? I would eat that. Then it's kind of also iconic in Minecraft 8 here. World material, yeah, that's a solid beast. The pearl is kind of like a kind of niche and cool thing. Hey, the purple, solid beast. Ooh, the source engine's original. Well, that's what without this we wouldn't have this one. In OKC, the Blender default solid material, and it can be transparent, translucent P and G color. Well, I think this is most people encountered this, the both, and yeah. It's my official ranking of if I would eat them by if they were soup.